welcome to this week's issue of Guerra Guerra.
Hi, I'm Mr. G. Today is March the 8th, 2025.
And today, we're going to be doing our third case study, the Millennial Money Maze. And it's an issue that a lot of people face once they get out of high school or college, and that's basically dealing with their finances. And basically, with this, we're going to take Alex, a 25-year-old college graduate with a degree in graphic design. He landed his first full-time job and has a decent salary, but he's also facing a lot of student loan debt as a result of going to college. And he has his dreams of getting his own design studio one day. But he's still determined on how to balance his financial obligations and his debts with his aspirations, basically.
So yeah, let's break this down. This is a very basic one, and we can link this to any students that might be graduating in the year 2024, 2025, or 2026 facing this. The numbers are kind of right, but what is that money maze they're talking about? Well, with digital finance coming in, with credit cards, with loan debts, then figuring out how to create a budget to, live and understand where your money's going. And so those are some of the situations. The financial situation in this particular case is he's got about a $45,000 a year gross income. And then we talk about expenses, rent $1,200, the student loan itself is $400 per month, yada, yada, yada. How do we take all of this and throw it into a chat or a Gemini and have it do it for you? It's very easy. Just talk it into it and tell it, I make $45,000 a year, divide that by 12 for each month. Here's how much all my expenses are. Go ahead and list them out and say subtract that and tell me what it is. And the answer is he's got about $850 a month that he's going to be able to save. This is after the other expenses, even entertainment and dining out. So that's a complete budget. It covers everything that your money goes towards during that month. So you can really account for it, where every penny is going. And so that's really important, trying to make sure you reach financial goals. So that's the situation. Is that a situation that's common to most in today's day and age? I think that it is.
Definitely.
Whether you're doing it alone, which is even harder, or you've got a partner, you've got a roommate, or you're even married, that situation makes it more difficult if you don't know where your money's going. And unfortunately, again, talking about financial literacy in education, in schools, it wasn't taught. It wasn't mandated that if you don't have a budget, you may not know where your money's going. And what's the Katy Perry song? If you don't, well, we'll get to that one later. But again, if you don't plan, you may fail. And the age-old adage, people don't plan to fail; they just fail to plan. And that's exactly what happens.
Yeah, one of the great ways is to separate your financial goals into, typically you could do short and long term, but if you want to be specific, you could have short-term goals, mid-term goals, and long-term goals, from just the range of 3 to 6 months for short-term, a full year, maybe year and a half to 2 years for mid-term, and then long-term is speaking 5 to 10 to 20 years. Those are basically the end goals, is once you reach your long-term goals, you're typically at the point in which you're happy with you've completed what you want and your goals are good and they're done. Like, for an example, Alex's long-term goal is to get his own design studio. That's the end goal, to get out of the current job that he has and to start his own career, his own business. And so the short-term goals would be to use that extra funding that he has to build an emergency fund to basically be able to survive in case, say, he loses that job or something, and to pay off high interest on credit card debts that he may occur due to still being potentially not as well knowledged with how to deal with those pitfalls. Yeah. And those would be the short-term goals.
Yeah, definitely. And so what is money, and how does money work for us? So this is all part of your wants versus your needs. And in an inflationary economy like we have now, meaning the price of things could keep going up, and all we can do is plan for that at this moment. But it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. If we think it's going to go up, it's probably going to go up, and then it goes up, and then we said, yep, we saw it, it went up. So, understanding how to make sure that this is a want versus a need. So there's different ways, like food and clothing, obviously, the things that we need, video games, other things that maybe we just want, and those aren't our needs, but psychologically we could trick ourselves thinking that it is. So you got to be careful. There's some real world examples built into this case study and whatnot, but understanding that I think is key. Realize that saving your money and not spending it is a superpower these days. Literally, it really is. It's a superpower if you can figure out how to make sure that your money stays with you. And that would go for managing money also. If you can make sure that money doesn't disappear and risk manage it, then that's a whole nother superpower also.
Moving on, another superpower regarding savings is knowing where to save it, because you could just put it in the bank and after 20 years that money is worthless because it did not beat inflation. And especially nowadays with tariffs that can affect our inflation, how inflation, just thanks to the pandemic and ever since, have been shooting up. Basically, the bank, putting your money in the bank is losing money in the long run, because banks don't beat inflation. And inflation is like at a 3, probably could even get to a 4% rating in the next decade. And you basically, saving in a bank is not optimal anymore. It has to go into a market of some kind. It has to be invested in order to even keep the value that it has today, let alone if you want it to grow.
Right. And so banks invest in very conservative things. Maybe it's rebuilding of the city and construction projects, and they use bonds and notes and different things for that nature. And those are achieving 6-7% with very little downside risk. It's more of a business risk than other things. But so great example. And so other real world examples, talking about, well, you were talking about where to save your money.
Yes.
So where do we save it? We try to save it in diversification and mutual funds. We try to save it in higher interest yielding, short-term, treasuries. We try to save it possibly even in, right now, short-term CDs as our curve, our yield curve on the 10-year and the 2-year treasuries has inverted, which is the interest rate that is inverted. Lost the word there. Interest rate that is inverted. We are basically looking at getting more for a shorter term, a 2-year, than we do for a 10-year. And that's what I mean by invert. Because technically you should get a higher yield for holding something for a longer period of time. And so that's what we mean when we say it's inverted. We're getting more for a shorter period of time. And we are in a digital economy. So that's what this young man, Alex, is looking at. Graduating, being in the digital economy, and that's why it is such even more of a maze than it was before. Can you scroll down just a second?
Sure.
That's why it was even more than before, because of these challenges. So that's what I wanted to look at. Challenges, high student loan debt. Maybe he's got limited savings. In this particular example, we're giving him $2,000 of savings. And lifestyle of inflation. And so, how have you seen inflation impact us most recently, Seth?
Well, one thing is like mortgage rates. If you have a type of mortgage that varies, these days it's shot up a lot, I'm pretty sure. Not to mention just in the grocery, a lot of packaged goods that are like junk food is going up. And not to mention, not only are prices going up, but there's also the phenomenon of shrinkflation. Of not only are product prices going up, but the amount that you get from the product is lessening as businesses cut corners and raise prices to try to make a profit.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. If you're not familiar with shrinkflation, that's what he's talking about. It's that candy bar or that foot-long sub or whatever it might have been that was one size that you paid that $1 for, that now is just a smaller size you're still paying $1 for. So shrinkflation is part of inflation, and great point, thank you. So yes, the digital world, we're talking about the lifestyle inflation here and how even digital world can make things more expensive, even though they're supposed to make them less expensive, just because of the goods, the product, whatever it was, had to get shipped over from somewhere else. And now we have these tariffs that may or may not be kind of like a tax, but unfortunately, the domestic country is the one that pays for upfront those particular cost increases that the tariffs basically mandate. So the other thing that Alex is challenged with is a lack of investment knowledge. Taking that extra money, where does he put it to get it to grow for him? Where does he put it to make sure it fits his risk tolerance? Where does he put it to make sure he doesn't lose it all? So those are some of the questions that, having investment knowledge can definitely help, and financial literacy. And then, as we said, he's got an entrepreneurial spirit. He wants to own his own business. So if you had $850 extra a month and you're looking to save that money for your business, where would you invest it?
Well, depending on the risk tolerance and financial knowledge, the first thing to do would just be to look at the market, and primarily, as you would put it, the sectors of the market, like in medicine or in energy, those sectors, things that typically go up more often. And it would probably be a mutual fund of probably the safest option would be a mutual fund that dips into multiple sectors. So that way, basically, the safest option would be for this economy that doesn't deal with a bank, would be a mutual fund that dips into multiple sectors to diversify between multiple risk sectors.
I like that. I like it a lot. Let's just call it the S&P 500. That could be one that has some very credible companies, 500, some of the finest institutions in the world. Let's say we invested in that. Let me add one more piece, because today is March the 8th, 2025, and the market is actually on a downtrend at the moment, and it's because it's scared. It's scared about the tariffs. It's uneasy about what's going to happen in the future. And when that happens, our VIX, VIX, the volatility index, shoots up. And normally when that shoots up, the market shoots down because it is unknowing of what's going to happen. And that's what's happening right now. So would we want to invest right now? The answer is yes, believe it or not. But we don't want to throw all our money in at one time. We want to do something called dollar cost averaging. So in this particular case, let's say we have that $800, we continue to save that $800 into that savings account, and that savings account probably each month could start to take money out, and maybe even each week. So these are different things we could look at. Maybe with $800 a month, twice a month, money would come out and be invested into that particular S&P 500. So as the market goes up, as the market goes down, basically you're investing in different areas. So if the market continues to go down, you keep buying it cheaper and cheaper as it goes down. And if this is a long-term investment plan over a 2 to 3 year period, dollar cost investing is some of the most powerful investing. And when I was an employee at the Home Depot, years ago, they got me interested back in the 1990s investing in their stock. And my dollar cost averaging into that stock out of my paycheck each week turned into a phenomenal amount as it compounded. And in the years 1990 to 1994, Home Depot actually averaged a 100% annual return. So it definitely did some good numbers. And rule of 72, if you're familiar with that, so all it had to do is achieve over the 72 percentile on an annual basis, and your money was doubling. And that happened 4 years in a row at Home Depot. But good stuff, good times. We don't want to detract from that. Let's end this on a good note, talking about, we were just talking about tariffs, global connection. So sometimes things happen with inflation and we don't know what's happening. But again, if there's a shortage of ingredients, if there's a war going on where we get lots of our soybeans to make different types of oils like the Ukraine, that's why those particular oils in cost haven't gone up. So with the global economy, everything affects everybody else. Things in China affect the United States. So those are some bigger things to take a look at as far as our global connections and understanding how all that's working. We'll have to hold a second segment on that to get not into politics, but understanding how politics is impacting the economy and how it's impacting what you buy at the store, and inflation as well. So looking ahead, make sure you educate yourself, make sure you stay informed, and if you need any extra information, visit us at our website, realstepsnft.com, needed financial tools, and you can get some extra education there.
All down in the description.
Thanks, have a great day.
See you next week.